nervous?
No.
Where's your answer?
Dennis Beckham, let the ball on! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Oh!
Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it.
Interesting game. It's kind of weird. I mean, Austin lost 0-1 to Seattle Sounders, and fine, like that happens. We kind of, expected something similar to that, but there was nothing that happened in the beginning of the game or before the game, and I don't really know how to deal with that. Like normally there's a bunch of music and stuff, and I'm just kidding. There was an awesome play, and we're going to talk about it. Joining me today, Brad Tillery. Brad, how you doing?
I mean, I just recently got my pilot's license, so I'm doing pretty well.
Oh, okay. Like Friday? I'm just kidding. I'm not a cop, maybe. Joining us as well, Seth, who knows everything. Seth, how you feeling?
I've recovered from COVID, so that's good. But also that she was winning when I had COVID and we're losing when we don't have it. No, we're not going to go play that game.
Correlation, causation, I think you know the difference, at least on
yes.
one. Also with us, Charles Peacock of the Falls 9, Texas. Charles, how you doing?
I'm doing as good as I could after having to watch that match for a second time today.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's on you, kind of. So, I mean, if you watched it live, you chose to rewatch it.
No, I did. It's one of those weird things of like, the outcome, but like it's still going to be sad, like the ending of Old Yeller or My Girl.
I believe it's called Old Yellow. All right, anyways, enough fucking about. Let's talk about the goddamn plane and the chance, because nobody wants to talk about the goddamn game. Charles, thoughts on the plane and the game, and did you know any of that was coming, or the plane and the chance, anything like that?
So by the plane, you mean the WolfDut plane, correct?
No. I mean the
think...
low-flying Southwest Airlines double flights that came. Of course, I mean that plane.
So I was aware it was happening. I was very excited about it. It also was kind of the funniest outcome that it was spelled incorrectly. I felt like I was living a live episode of Veep while it was going on. Like I kept waiting for Julia Louis-Dreyfus to pop up and be like, "What the fuck, guys?" But I feel like the message got across, and in some ways the misspelling kind of got it more attention because everybody kind of was able to like joke about it a little bit and make like references to it as opposed to just being like, "Hey, did you see the plane?" The chance at the end of the match, I think there was one at like 84 and one at like 87. Basically, it was like whenever the song stopped. We're coming right from like the middle of 103. Like I can clearly hear it. You can hear it on the broadcast. I'm glad that the fans have embraced it a little bit more in terms of being out and vocal at the stadium and understanding that like we can support the team with chanting and singing and being involved, but also still voice our displeasure at what's going on the field. And I'm not sure about this. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I kind of feel like that might have emboldened Alex Ring in his post-game comments. But I'd be kind of interested to hear what everybody else thought about that.
But the question is, like, Alex Ring's comments weren't really reported on because, like, it was a question of, like, I think We Are Austin TV's graphic of that made that sound way more dramatic than that actually was. I think that there is just this part of the fan base, and let's face it, the part of the fan base that listens to our podcast that has been, like, just waiting for locker room drama for the last year plus. And, like, on the one hand, I sort of get it. It's human nature. Things are not going that well. You want to see that there are big signs of this, but I also think that we know that Alex Ring doesn't really care for Josh Wolf because he removed him as captain of the team. And, like, that's a sort of a known, and there was really no ground being broken by the quote, even if it was out of context.
No, but I mean, you can sort of understand wanting something to happen, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, no shit. We all want something to happen. We might not have agreed with the spelling of the plane, but all four of us have been recorded at length here of thinking that this team needs another coach. And yeah, like some of the national pundits were like, well, Austin had won 2 of the last 4 matches. Yes, Austin had one, but like do the national pundits? Well, wait a minute. No one can actually watch every MLS game unless they're going to go back and watch it because they're almost all at the same time. But if you watch this team play, it is excruciating. And this is why we're talking about a plane rather than about the game itself. And we hope for a future where that will get better. And obviously, signings will help with that. But still, the fundamental cause of this problem is it hasn't changed yet.
Yeah. Brad, any thoughts?
No, I mean, to go back to the original question, it was kind of a big open secret, I guess, about the plane. Enough people knew it was happening where I'm surprised more people didn't know. I guess it's a little interesting to me. I remember Jeremiah Bentley posted this the other day, one of the hosts of Moon Tower. And somebody was complaining about, well, this isn't the way you go about it. And he put it on Twitter. He goes, as Adrian Healy told us, and I think he's referring to an interview they had on their show. Adrian Healy said the only real pressure in this league is fan pressure. Because there is no threat of relegation. There is no threat of lost revenue in that respect, right? You're still going to get your payouts and everything else. So if the fans aren't putting the pressure on, then who is? Because most teams will accept mediocrity if you allow them. It took a walkout last year by fans and basically not showing up and just putting banners protesting what was going on in Colorado before they finally made changes to their managerial situation. Oh, by the way, Colorado's in the playoffs if you look right now and pretty healthy compared to where they were a year ago. Now they've made some significant changes along with the manager, but it spurred their front office to do more. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show about we are now roughly at 2 full years of league MLS games since August 26th, 2022, when Austin FC beat LAFC 4-1. And over those 2 full seasons, Austin FC is one of the worst teams in MLS. And of all those teams, like bottom 5 teams in MLS in that span, we're the only one that hasn't made a managerial change. So at some point, it's not, oh, we need better players. And by the way, Josh Wolf continuously saying we need better players is not how you lead a locker room. You don't inspire the guys that you have by telling them they're not good enough to get the job done. Because he consistently talks about how this team does not have the talent that he needs. I'm sorry, you're a coach. Your job is to take the talent you have and make them better. Put them in positions to be better than their individual parts. Make the sum of their parts better. He's not doing that. So it's about time that this fan base stood up and said, you know what, we're just not okay with this. And it's okay to be loud about it. And for those out there who don't like people being loud about it, you know what? You can come to the stadium and be loud and scream Wolf in and do your own thing as well. But the results do not justify this man still being in his job today.
No, and I think you kind of hit on what my big issue with the quote-unquote Wolf in movement is. Like, I totally understand the Wolf's already here attitude. And sort of, you know, as we all learned from Bill Nye the Science Guy, inertia is a property of matter. But would anybody fucking hire Josh Wolf tomorrow? No, of course they wouldn't. Like, what would you put on your resume? Like, arguably the worst coach who hasn't been fired in MLS history?
So I was at the Fire game on Saturday night, and I made a joking reference as the Sounders lead flashed on the scoreboard there. It's like, oh, well, Josh Wolf will be available at the end of the season. And a number of Fire fans were like, well, he's a Fire legend. Like, he's got us into a conference final. We'd love to hire him. And I just started laughing. I didn't even have anything to say in response.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my one place I think would actually think about hiring Josh Wolf. Was Chicago.
Yeah. Are you guys tired of doing this?
Extremely.
Okay. Like, I don't, you mentioned the record before the plane flew, and that seems incredibly short-sighted. Like, are you only firing a coach who's been around for 3.5, almost 4 years based on 4 games? No, of course you're not. Why would you?
Yeah. That was the thing. Somebody in the national media, I forgot where it was today, because the plane got picked up, and they said it seemed like a weird time considering Austin's 2-1-1 over the last 4. Dude, if you think anybody's mad about the last 4 games specifically, then you're not paying attention to this team long term. And that's, I think, the message that is out there right now is this team is averaging less than around 1.2 points a game over those 64, 65 MLS games. And I'm not talking about losing at home in Open Cup to Chicago with a dream draw of being home all the way to the semis had we won. I'm not including losing the Violette in this last year. Like, I'm not talking about, I mean, we all are on the record for, especially me, like, I don't give a damn about Leagues Cup. But we flat got worked in Leagues Cup last year with the easiest possible group we could have gotten at home. And at some point, you've got to show me more than this one little blip in October of 2022, which we've talked about this too. We were lucky to get out of round one. Very, 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 very lucky to get out of round one at home against RSL. Like, there's the evidence is just so overwhelming against keeping Josh Wolf at this point that I would love to sit down with Roto and with Precourt and everybody else making the decisions and go, what the hell am I missing?
Charles, you wanted to jump in here?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the national media comment about like the recent results is this idea that like wanting the coach to be fired or not is directly related to like the last 3 games. Like that's kind of a like short-sighted and frankly like intentionally disingenuous view of a movement of people who have been echoing these sentiments for years at this point. And the idea that Wolf, who I think is the top, I think he's like the 5th or 6th longest tenured coach in MLS, like is somehow like being judged only on his last 4 games is just kind of like an asinine view. And it just kind of goes to show that like, I don't think people are, I think a lot of people fall into the trap of looking at soccer just by wins and losses and draws instead of looking at anything underlying or watching the matches or seeing the consistent things that we see that as fans who watch every game at least once. And it's why like the national media and MLS really fails the sport in the league.
Yep, but someone has to pay for it. And I mean, I'm glad that Tom Bogert went over to that new outlet, but like you need to have more institutions covering this league for it to actually be taken as a serious product. So that, but then again, we have clowns that go on ESPN and takes about the NFL and NBA who have no clue what they're talking about. So it's just at a point you have to grow the game, but there has to be money involved in it. And it has to be people who are not willing to just take the league's line on everything. And that's going to take a long time to build up.
Well, and it's tied in with the whole U.S. soccer bullshit where, Alexi Lalas is screaming at us left and right, LeBron James of soccer, and completely ignorant things like that. And like, love or hate Alexi Lalas, he knows better. He knows that's not true. And it's just insane that we keep getting all of this shit pushed at us left and right. And, this gets tied in. Like, when Josh was hired, it was sort of like, oh, he's Greg Berhalter's protege. Great. Greg Berhalter's doing a great job. Asterisk. I don't think any of us ever really thought that, but that was kind of the tagline. And I've been hearing from, friends around the country like, oh, Greg got fired. Does that affect Josh Wolf's job at all? I don't know the answer to that question. Do you guys?
I mean, heck, but Greg Berhalter getting the first time fired, the first time definitely impacted Austin FC.
I mean, his contract wasn't renewed, if we're to be technical about it.
Yes.
I think it says a lot that the Greg Berhalter coaching tree is very quickly wilting in MLS. Like, I think Josh is the last one, isn't he? Where the head coaching go?
Mm-hmm.
Technically, Callahan officially got hired.
Yeah. Well, okay, fair.
Yeah.
I forgot about BJ just got hired, but everybody else has already been hired and fired.
I mean, 2 of them this year already.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to go into the whole USA thing, or should we save it for after the game discussion?
Honestly, let's go into the USA discussion because that's more entertaining than the game discussion.
Well, but sure, also it kind of ties directly in, right?
Right. It's the same problem, isn't it, Brad?
Yeah, I think the meme of The Office where they say corporate needs you to find the difference between this picture and this picture. It's the same picture. That's put Greg Berhalter and Josh Wolf's face on the 2 pictures. It's the same thing.
But like,
I think I've said on this podcast before, like, Wolf learned a lot of things from Berhalter, and that's not a good thing. Like when you
Yes.
look at how he handles the media and how he handles players, how he even positions players. At the beginning of 2023, kind of like the I don't want to say downfall, but like the slide in form of Driussi, part of that was that he started playing Driussi on the left wing, which is where he used to play Pulisic, and when Pulisic couldn't affect the game either. And at some point, you just have to be like, oh, the guy, like his mentor, is a bad coach, and Josh actually, in some ways, is a better MLS coach than Greg ever was. And I think some of the hope of getting Burrell, of somebody who actually really knows what he's doing and talking about, is that Josh would get better, and he hasn't. And if anything, I think he's gotten worse.
All right, Seth, you're the man of cold reality. Do we have any hope with either Berhalter or Wolf getting a competent replacement anytime soon?
Maybe. I think I have to give Matt Crocker another shot, because I think Matt Crocker was thrown into the process last time where he was pretty much told, hey, we have a bunch of B-list, because my understanding is that the Bielsa and Jesse Marsch interviews had happened before Crocker was hired, and that Crocker didn't really have the ability to make the hires that he wanted to. He gets to run this process, and if he has people like Luis Del Fuente reaching out to him, you had Rafa Benitez openly going on the Golazo Network and lobbying for the job. If you have people of that caliber and we end up with someone else, I mean, I like Wilfred Nancy as a coach. I might disagree with him on the substitution rules and things like that. Steve Trundle is a fine coach. I have higher expectations of someone who is going to manage the United States national team than either of them. But if people like of the higher tier of top European coaches or coaches who have been internationally successful are interested in this job, yes, find some extra money to them. Even if that means paying Emma Hayes another $1 million or $2 million for pay equity, or pay it to the women's team, because I still want to have everything paid 50-50 here. But get Marriott, get some of your other big sponsors, get Arthur Blank, get whoever else that needs to be done. And money should not be the reason why the United States men's national team does not have an outstanding coach come 2026 World Cup. Do I think we get there? I think it's 50-50.
All right, how about Austin?
Austin, I think Roto will eventually, if we miss the playoffs, if we make the playoffs, even if it's the 8-9 games.
We said this shit last year, though, didn't we, Seth?
No, but we get to a point there where Roto didn't actually set expectations for last year. At the end of this offseason, he set an expectation that this team should be a playoff team. He did not set that for 2023.
Okay, but is that reasonable?
It's not reasonable. You know what? In this league, sure. I would, in my mind, reasonable is you at least get to the stupid round of 3. If he gets to the stupid round of 3, you let him finish out his contract. If he does it, you fire him. I mean, all 4 of us would have fired him at the end of last season, but we're not in charge of this team. Roto was still getting his sea legs. Precourt is like, oh, he's only 1 year off of this. He wasn't able to be fired last year. If this team misses the playoffs and he doesn't get fired, holy shit, the opening game tifo better be way worse than a plane.
All right, well, there we go. Brad or Charles, any overarching thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on the U.S. team, I think you're going to get a pretty decent hire, actually. And the reason is I think the Federation feels the pressure from the fans, and the fact that we're hosting in 2 years is just going to put more eyeballs on this team from a national perspective, and they know they have to hit this right. Settling is it's not going to be perceived as something that's going to be acceptable. For Austin, if and when Wolf is gone, we've heard Roto say you wouldn't believe the guys who want to come here from a playing perspective. We've never actually had him say anything about what kind of coach he could lure. And I do get the feeling that it would be truly his decision as opposed to Precourt making the full call here like he did the first time around. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because Roto has not disappointed me with any of his signings to this point. I'm disappointed with the way they're being used on the field, but that's a coaching problem.
Sure, but isn't Roto's first big decision we're keeping Josh Wolf?
Yeah, I mean, to me, and I think that decision is probably getting made sooner or later. It's going to be made for him with performance on the field. I mean, I would make the argument, even if we struggle and limp into the playoffs in 8th or 9th in the play-in game, that Wolf is probably gone at the end of this year, because with the reinforcements coming in, Roto probably expects us to be doing better than just limping into the playoffs.
I would hope so. Charles, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I don't even think well, let me rephrase. In a league like MLS, where 9 out of 14 teams in the West make the playoffs, I don't even think making the non-playoff game, the play-in game, is really the only thing that I would count as playoffs and being successful. I also just kind of don't think that, and I think the only reason why the U.S. job is desirable right now is because they're hosting a World Cup in 2 years, and I think that generally it's not a very desirable job.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why they're probably. I think they're trying to aim high, but I also think that a lot of national team coaches or potential national team coaches are going to use it to try to get more money. I think Spain's coach is doing that right now. And I think ultimately, like, they're going to end up with like Cherundolo or Nancy or somebody who's like not really like a sexy name, or somebody that the fan base is going to be like that excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more excited about Nancy instead of Cherundolo, and I was like Team Cherundolo after the 2022 World Cup, but it's way too short of a time period for him to figure this out for me. But we've kind of done the U.S. one to death, so.
Yeah, but I'll slightly push back on you. Steve Cherundolo won an MLS Cup in his first year as an MLS coach.
And played in 2 or 3 more finals since then. Yes, he's lost the finals, but he's made it to them.
Yeah, but is that going to drag Gio Reyna to beating Spain? It's not.
But I guess what I like about Cherundolo is that he learned how to be a coach at Hannover 609s and over in Germany, rather than like through the MLS system per se. Yes, he's been in MLS the last few seasons, but he's someone who, I mean, yes, Berhalter learned a lot of stuff in the Netherlands as well. I recognize that too, but like, it's not just, he's not as much a USSF golden boy, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, he's kind of the middle ground. Berhalter was Sweden, right?
Yeah. Yes, he was at Hammarby, yeah.
Yeah, Hammarby when they were in the second division. Then he got fired for lack of attacking play.
Yeah, and he got hired by the Columbus Crew.
Yeah, actually, that's the only job he's ever been fired from. So, cool. Great, resume for Josh Wolf to follow. All right, let's talk about the fucking game before this really.
Josh Wolf could go back to 1860 Munich, where he played for a little bit, because they're in the 3rd division in Germany right now.
I'll pack his bags for him.
I'll drive him to the airport.
Yeah, okay, that's very nice of you. Are you going to do the like Uber thing, leave a little like bottle of water and, ask him how he wants to climb it?
I'll give him money. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm going to turn off all the AC in the back and have a panel, and the only water will be the same temperature as the back.
Yeah.
Or right now, do you think his family wants to stay in Austin after apparently there were Wolf Out chants started in the section where they were in?
I was about to bring that up too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Fuck it, we'll do all the fun stuff at the front. I want people to listen to the back, but we'll do all the fun stuff at the front.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: if you're a family member, and I understand families are going to look at this as this is our livelihood. You don't know everything, blah blah blah. Fine, I get it. I do understand that, and my pushback is this is professional sports. I don't know what you think you signed up for, but it's not the local high school team. And by the way, go to a Texas high school football game around here on a Friday night starting in about a month and a half. I promise you will hear people yelling at coaches, and sometimes far worse than please Wolf out or something of that nature. So when you have families openly getting into fans' faces about it, one, I question what the front office is doing sitting family members down there as opposed to like in those upper area, those kind of lofts behind behind the north end goals would make sense to just reserve one of those for family. But then two, you don't have to make yourself known as family. that are that family. It's not a good look. Fans are going to be fans. You have to know that. You have to expect that. And it's unfortunately, as long as fans aren't throwing stuff at you, as long as they're not cussing you out, right? That's part of the territory that comes with being a coach. And sometimes you just have to let water roll off a duck's back if you're a family member in that case.
Okay, I have a serious question for you, though.
Yeah.
If they put the families up in those lofts, which I think you've sat in before.
I have. They're nice.
Do we have to include climbing gear for Darwin Nunez if he plays here?
No, there's a nice elevator. It works.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, he can stretch out.
It's right now. I'm far more scared of the Colombian Federation president than I am of Darwin Nunez.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin Nunez can actually throw a punch, though.
But Darwin Nunez is going to miss his punch.
Good point. All right, let's not pile on Copa America.
No, I mean, going back to Brad's point about this being professional coaching, there's the old adage that every coach is either fired or going to be fired. That's just a thing of professional sports, and even more so in soccer. Soccer coaches have a much shorter shelf life than football coaches do, or basketball coaches, especially if you compare college or pro. That's just kind of the nature of your chosen profession there. And this idea that a team that is not a playoff team and fans thinking that the coach should be fired is kind of normal. I don't know. I just kind of assume every team that doesn't make the playoffs is probably going to fire the coach.
The compensation is what it is for top level coaches because of the pressure that comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The few people I talk to that seem to be Wolf's doing a good job are kind of the more UT football-y folks, which doesn't make any sense at all to me because
yeah,
if you run somebody out of town, I'm not even picking on UT here. It's a college football thing. How do you guys not see the similarities here?
Yeah, they ran Tom Herman out of town for less.
Yeah, I mean, Barry Odom at Mizzou was the handpicked successor of probably our best coach ever. And I mean, unless you want to count the Dan Devine era, we're not going to get into this, but and he sucked, and he was sort of bowl, maybe bowl not. And that's way better than Josh fucking Wolf is doing right now. And that's Missouri, which is kind of it's SEC, but it's low stakes.
Can we come up with a song for Josh Wolf to not sing?
Do you have one in mind?
No, it's just it's really interesting. Obviously, I was making a subtle dig at Tom Herman there, who I think was right in that case. But that as we go through it, it is the fact that the Sounders, we played on Saturday, Nuhu was suspended for a match, Rui Diaz was suspended for a match for not going out to the crowd, where we have a manager who, yes, his primary responsibility is not to engage fans or do anything like that. But there are ways that he could have the same record, but if he had actually wanted to engage and get to a point, yes, he might take some grief from time to time, but at least put on a smile and get to a point of we actually care about you rather than paying just lip service, going over after a match. If he had been doing that for 4 years, he would have a fair bit more grace and goodwill built up than he does right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we're going to go ahead and do this entire thing now, but how much do you guys care about Josh's attitude, I guess we'll call it, towards the fans? Charles, you're kind of our resident supporters section guy, so what do you think?
So I'm a firm believer that winning solves everything.
Yep.
I think that if Austin was winning and he was kind of curmudgeon-y, we'd kind of think it was funny. But when you're losing, everything is wrong. If you're, if the players like you, but you're losing, then it's oh, the players run the team, blah, blah, blah. And then if you're a disciplinarian but losing, it's oh, they're too strict, the players don't know what they're doing. I think the biggest thing for me is just that Josh is the same coach he was 4 years ago, and we still see him gesticulating wildly on the sidelines, and he still makes the same comments after press conferences about talking about oh well, we saw blah blah in practice and it didn't show up in the game and blah, and we've had 4 years of this, and at some point you just kind of get built up with this idea that oh, he just doesn't know what he's doing. And part of that, and I think this is also probably a Berhalter thing that he learned from Berhalter, is that he doesn't acknowledge fans. He doesn't make players acknowledge fans. He does nothing but pay lip service at press conference and press conferences and answers that sound canned and sound like it comes from a PR person who wrote it on his notes and put it in big bold letters, say blah, blah, blah. And he would have more goodwill, but he has made a conscious choice not to do that. He made a conscious choice to talk down about Copa Tejas when that's the only trophy he's ever going to win here. And, you see the change of, or what we thought was going to be a change after 2022 when he, one, started wearing Verde, and two, started caring about Copa Tejas, has completely gone away because all he does is wear black polos now.
Well, he did have his whole lines earlier about like, oh, well, I beat Houston. Like, look at my record against, our rivals thing earlier this year.
That's the one that I think that's the one team he has a winning record against.
Kansas City.
Is it a winning record still?
Yeah, because we've won all 4 games against KC at home, and we won once there. So yeah, it's a winning record. And there's a number of like teams in the East. Like we beat Montreal both matches. We beat DC both matches. There's some other teams that he has winning records against.
I am actually very surprised that no Eastern team has tried to poach him.
Again, like I fully expect if Austin does not make the playoffs that he will somehow be the Chicago Fire head coach in 2025 if Greg Berhalter declines the job.
We'll
what a
see.
depressing sentence.
We took a little detour from where I wanted to be here, but I agree with the winning solves everything comment, and I really don't care. Like if a coach comes up and like Belichick's it up and just like puts Tom Brady on the probable list every fucking week, it's kind of funny to me, like where he just doesn't acknowledge anything. And like, even if you're fine, it doesn't matter to me, but he seems a little actively antagonistic. And I mean, Brad, you're our multiple award-winning sports journalist here. Like, where do you fall here?
Yeah, we've talked before. His media training is terrible.
Yeah.
Josh quite often comes off as smug, which is interesting because when you talk to people who know him, they say he's actually a super nice guy. And I think if he showed more of his actual personality and who he is, instead of this guardedness, that he would probably buy some really goodwill. I go back to, I think back to 2022 and that game in Houston, and hot as shit in April, and Austin picks up a come from behind victory, and everybody's celebrating in the parking lot by the buses waiting to go home. And Josh actually walked over to everyone before getting on the team bus to head home and grabbed a megaphone and tell everybody, thank you for coming and keep up the support and blah, blah, blah. That little thing, it took him 5 minutes of his time, bought so much goodwill with the fan base. And he's never really done anything like that since. And I don't know why. I don't get it. I think as fans, we just want to know that you care. And when you see this team play and you hear how he speaks, it sounds like he wants to win and he tries to work a lot. I mean, you got back to Roto last year saying, well, he was up at 9 a.m. after, playing all night long. Well, great. So was I. I was at work at 8. What's your fucking point? You don't feel the passion from him in his voice, and you don't see it on the sidelines, and you don't see it in the way the team plays for large portions of the match. And I think that's what their disconnect really is when I step back and look at this. He talks about fan passion, but he's not matching it.
No, he seems to be pushing it down, if anything.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, like we've said a million times, I don't really care. But if you're if you're just like blah blah blah, wrote thing, whatever. But if you're like actively kind of butting heads with the fans, that seems a little odd.
Yeah,
like if you lost the game, why would you do that?
And I do think there is something to just not ever acknowledging the fans. I stay around after games a lot, even though I'm not in the supporter section, and just watch. And there's only a couple of guys who make it a point every match to salute the people who come out and support them every game.
Well,
and Wolf is never that guy. Occasionally, if we win, he'll do a lap. But that speaks to the culture from the top for me. And I've heard the excuse internally of, well, it hurts when we lose at home and we're all disappointed. You know what? I'm sure it hurt, let's say Liverpool or whoever, when they lose at home too. Do you ever see them not go salute their fans?
I mean, you can say lots of things about your Jurgen Klopp-led team, but they're always going to make a round. It might be a shorter round, but like they're still going to go over. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the scenes in France where you'll see a team that goes over and their fans are just yelling at them for 5 minutes straight, but like they'll take it. Like in France, Germany, England is less so, but like in France or Germany, if you don't go over to your fans, especially your traveling fans when you're away, that is just the shameful low of it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I want our people berating the team with a megaphone, right? I don't. That's not what I'm asking for. But just acknowledgement that one, these people who are going to games spend their time, they invest their emotion, and they invest their freaking money. Some people who are literally investing all of their extra cash that they have for like their entertainment budget for the year on a season ticket because this is the one thing they can do and make nights out of. And you don't have the basic courtesy to say thank you for that effort to come out and watch us play so that we could play a game for a living. Yeah, that's shitty. And that needs to come from the top. And I've been around enough sports to where, yes, a coach and a manager can look at the team and go, unacceptable, go acknowledge your people or do this for the fans. Like we just saw Brian Schmetzer do it with Raul Ruidiaz, of all people. A legend for Seattle because he didn't go acknowledge fans after a game because he was pissed off.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's all well and good to go do that and go rah-rah whenever you're kicking the shit out of teams 5-1. But, I mean, Seth hit the nail on the head, and I'll let him go a little further on it here. But, like, when you're not doing well, that's the fucking time to do it and really say, no, guys, we recognize we weren't doing good enough. We can walk around and wave at you for 5 minutes. That shows we care a little bit. But
yes,
I mean, Seth, you wanted to talk about the Brian Schmetzer orchestra here.
Yeah, I mean, he got to a point for the June 29th match that both Nuhu and Ruidiaz were suspended. Nuhu has since come back. He has, I believe, played every minute since coming back. But he got his lesson, and he's played 270 minutes, and I don't know, they've won all three of those matches. We look at a guy like Ruidiaz at a point, and Ruidiaz, I mean, I actually have to go further back into an app to keep pulling things up because when he's not even on the match day roster, some players will respond to that. Some players won't. And you know what? And if a player doesn't respond to a successful coach on this, you know what? Some other team in this league or another league will go take him. Austin SC should not be taking Raul Ruidiaz despite how badly we need a 9 at this point. But you know what? I'm sure if someone else wants to take him, if a team in Peru or somewhere else in South America wants to take him, God bless. Vaya con Dios.
Yeah. Culture starts at the top.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. Is culture starts at the top.
Yeah, I mean, what have we seen from T.O. Tony? I mean, I don't want to throw Roto under the bus here. He's a little new, but yeah. Well, let's go into it. Like, we had this whole issue with the Pirates in the North End, right?
Oh,
like,
yes.
So, I mean, does anybody have like a clear view on what happened that wants to explain it?
I was watching it as it happened.
Okay, yeah, Brad, go ahead.
I watched it as it happened from my seats, and then we got the update today in Slack or yesterday in Slack from the guys. And first of all, happy it was resolved that they got to stay in the stadium and watch second half. Basically, if you know, we affectionately call them the North End Pirates. Two very, very dedicated members of this fan base who, and they're not the fans who come in, drunkenly cursing at people and yelling. They're not those guys. What their goal is to bring that South End presence to the North End because they want everybody cheering and chanting and singing and everything. And the season ticket holders over there, they love them. Ever since day one, those guys have brought in little plastic handheld megaphones to, while they're yelling at the keeper or whatever the case may be, or leading chants, whatever the case may be. And I don't know, 20 minutes or so into the game, all of a sudden from my vantage point, you could see like they were being talked to by security, and then cops show up and a chant starts breaking out from the North End, which was, if I'm not mistaken, it was something like "Leave them alone," was the chant. And the cops show up and everybody in North End starts booing because these guys, they're there every week. They do the same thing every week, and they're just trying to bring positive vibes and energy to that north end. They got told by, I guess it was a new security person over there that they weren't allowed to have the plastic megaphones that they've had for 4 years now. Ultimately had to give them up at halftime. I know multiple people went and checked on them. I wanted to, but I also I saw that they were kind of surrounded by a ton of people at the half, and I just was like, okay, they're getting taken care of. And the last thing I want to do is try to escalate something because I was very pissed off for them at the time. When they walked back down right at the start of the second half, the entire North End stood and cheered for them. But that goes to the culture, right? Like, I understand this is probably a new security person and maybe just got overzealous, whatever the case may be. But I think the head of security are getting called into this, and they said, what rule has changed? And the head of security, well, this has always been the rule. No, it hasn't. It's never been enforced. If you guys at Austin FC want this culture in the stands that you love to promote, biggest party in the city, come have a great time. And you have people doing that job for you. They're paying to be there. They're not causing trouble. And then you go and try to remove them from the stadium over a freaking plastic megaphone that fits in the hands. What the hell are you doing in the front office of Austin FC? How are you not informing the people who are working your areas of every part of the stadium who the key people in that area are? So that way, if you're new, you can be like, oh yeah, those are the Pirates. They're cool. They do their thing. Everybody loves them. No big deal. Right. This is just basic. It's fundamental, small things that this club continues to screw up. And I don't know, until people start paying attention to the little details, we're going to always have these types of problems.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not even like real megaphones either. They're not like blasting people's eardrums out like the stadium DJ loves to do.
They're $2 Amazon plastic megaphones.
Yeah. Like, I understand if you're like throwing them at someone or like hitting people with them or like somebody complains or something, but
which they've never done.
Fuck?
Yeah, it's frustrating for me because this club loves to control the message a whole lot. But one of the messages they love to play out there is biggest party of the city, best party of the city. Okay, well, here's people bringing that fun party vibe to other parts of the stadium, trying to export it to get the whole stadium chanting and cheering, which only makes you look better as an organization. And then you're trying to stomp it out. Like, what do you want to be, Austin FC? What do you want to be on the field, and what do you want to be in the stands? It's a pivotal moment right now to me in the making of this club over the long term.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the promos for Austin FC, it's all fan stuff because are you going to show fucking highlights? You're not. Charles is our kind of resident supporter section guy. What do you think?
I actually get really frustrated about the going back to what was said about like this has always been the rule. Like, the rules in the supporter section change constantly based on security. There are times when they don't let people ride rails, and sometimes they do. There are times when they let people hang out in aisles and take selfie videos, and sometimes they don't. It actually worries me at times that it will become a dangerous situation because of, especially with how much rain we've had, of just like, it only takes one person to fall to like cause some kind of problem. One of the things I don't like is how they have switched from even basic things. Like, people initially got thrown out for doing beer showers. And then all of a sudden at the end of the first season, going into the second season, oh, it's a party, beer showers. It's a thing we advertise, blah, blah, blah. And like, you're just kind of like, okay, but I know people got kicked out for that. Are those people going back in now? Like, do you apologize to them because you decided to do it as a party, and now we have a bunch of frat bros and Masters polo shirts coming into the section who don't have tickets and who try to shove their way down in like the second half? And I get that like they're trying to make it seem like the fun, active thing to do, but like that's not the point here. Like, the point is to have fans who are diehards who come out every match and who care and can form the culture that you pride yourself on, but then you actually want to pride those people out to bring in other people who are going to kill the culture.
Yeah, it's very much like we want the managed party.
Yeah, they want the culture, but they don't want the people who are creating the culture.
Exactly. So, Brad, you kind of mentioned this, and I'll bring Seth back in, but I was going to bring this up after we talked about the game, which is apparently never going to fucking happen. Nobody cares about.
No, we absolutely have to get to the game.
We will. I'm watching the timer, but the less we have to talk about it, the better. I agree with Brad that this is very much a pivotal moment for the club in the next 2 games, then right after. I'm counting Leagues Cup as a break. I obviously don't think the club is, but I think it's a pretty common theme among not just us here, but the people who are pissed about U.S. Open Cup and a few other things. And, we're dangerously close if we lose to Frisco on Wednesday to just getting completely wiped like we did last year out of the playoff race entirely, even before the last week or two of the season. If that happens, what do we do? I'll just leave it open. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're done before the season, officially ends, then obviously Wolf is gone. I think that has to happen. I think we're probably due for a major roster overhaul this offseason, considering the contracts that are expiring, and that we have options on to get out of. So I do think a lot of the guys that are here right now won't be here come January. But I'm of the opinion that come September, October, there's a real good chance this club just needs a hard reset.
Yeah, and it feels like we're trying to half do it. And I guess, Seth, you're kind of our in the know guy, but like, is there any chance like we lose these next 2 games, we just hit the fuck it button and just go?
No, I don't see. I mean, it would have to like if we lose like 7-0 to Frisco, maybe
realistic.
But, I mean, it's happened in MLS before. I mean, Peter Musa scores a hat trick in the first half. No, I don't even want to put these thoughts in the universe. But I mean, we play a Frisco team that looked really good on Saturday night against the Galaxy. We play a Saturday against a Charlotte team that dismantled FC Cincinnati in Cincinnati this weekend. Like, this could very easily, even with Bukhari and Dessler coming in. And it sounds like Bukhari is likely to start on Saturday against Charlotte. It sounds like Dessler's more likely to be a sub based on what we've been hearing so far. But, I don't think that they would make a change until we are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Charles, does that depress you?
A little bit. So here's the thing: is I think that some of it is also like when you would make a coaching change and when it would be logical to do that. And I think the logical time to do that would be after we get grouped in Leagues Cup, because there would be like a long enough time to like bring somebody in and essentially have a like mini training camp. I think the biggest issue is that when you look at this idea of Austin being a playoff team, and we talked about it last week, I think in terms of the record, is that after Dallas, all they do is play playoff teams. And this idea that Austin's going to have a really brutal run in and they're already out of the playoffs. So unless Bukhari comes in just like absolutely like hits the ground running and becomes a like top level DP, I just don't see this team being able to make up enough points to get in the playoffs. Regardless of what happens this week, and I think this week is when we might have like the serious downturn of like, oh, this team is absolutely not a playoff team.
So, but
in any way, shape, or form.
On this podcast multiple times about the goal for before the reinforcements come was to get 31 points. We have 30 points. We will either win Copa Tejas and be on track, or we will not win Copa Tejas and not be on track. What a funny world to be in.
No pressure, Josh.
It is really funny that a match between the 10th place team in the West and the 11th place team in the West is the one that's going to determine is going to go a long way to determining Josh's future because of how much is on the line here.
I think there's a lot more on the line as fans than is in the front office on this match.
Well, but I think that speaks to what we were talking about earlier about Wolf and treating the fans. And like, if you want to treat Copa Tejas like a real trophy and onto the fan bases, then that would also go a long way instead of deriding it like he did for a long time. I think the biggest issue is just that, like, it feels like this season has been about clearing the decks by Roto and that the idea would be to come in like next season like guns blazing. But it's tough as fans to be like, okay, I spent X amount of number on tickets for a season you guys aren't trying to win, and you're raising prices for next year too.
Yeah, Brad, any thoughts?
I mean, I actually would have been fine if Roto had said we're just going to completely rebuild starting now. I can live with that. But when you put the goal out there is it has to be a playoff year. And yes, I realize we're on the fringe right now, but you guys just talked about it. This schedule coming home, my goodness, it's brutal. We've got 2 trips to LA. The Eastern Conference game is up in Toronto, which, by the way, we're going straight from Toronto to LAFC on a short week. We still got to go to Portland. RSL's coming here. I mean, the matches on the schedule left are just really not favorable on paper as it stands right now. We don't know how Bakari and Dessler are going to come into the team yet. Neither with Vatak. So, there's certainly reinforcements coming, but everybody else, it's not like everybody else is just standing pat, right? Other teams are getting better too in this window. So my thoughts are that this is a really big week of soccer this coming week for Austin. I think they've got to find at least 4 points. I know we said 30-31 by the Leagues Cup break, but considering the schedule that's left, I think they've got to find 4 points this week.
To make the playoffs?
To have a shot by the end of the year, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, the bare minimum is Copa Tejas, and that's always the bare minimum. So, get a draw in Frisco, and we'll go from there. Who knows? Are we expecting big changes this week? Like Rubio, Zardes, who's your striker?
I imagine Rubio starts on Wednesday.
Yeah. Zardes started because it was riding the hot hand.
Yeah, and I think there's a little minute management for Rubio there too.
Yes.
If you need him to play a full game in Frisco, go for it. But
yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. Would you guys rather talk about the game or talk about Frisco?
Let's talk about the game for a minute, because I thought there were a few interesting things to talk about within it.
Sure. Go ahead and kick us off.
So for me, the first half was actually pretty solid. Right? I
think so.
Yeah. I thought the first half was pretty evenly played. Now, my concern when I say that is Seattle rotated relatively heavily in that first half. They didn't bring on Jordan Morris till the second half. But I thought we played some creative spots. I thought we came up with much more energy to start the game than we did last week against New York, which was my biggest complaint for a New York game. I wasn't on here for the pod last week, but I didn't get a chance to tell y'all, I walked out of that win against New York mad at how we came out of the locker room in the first 15 to 20 minutes of that game. So it was nice to see that we came out with some fire. Second half was the complete opposite. We came out of the locker room just seemingly spent and not ready to play. And the goal we gave up, the lack of effort, specifically by Danny Pereira, needs to be talked about.
Yep.
You guys, yeah.
Talk away.
And I saw it live, and then I went and rewatched the replay just to make sure I saw what I saw.
Yeah, it's worse on the replay.
He gets beat on a half turn and does not chase the ball. Literally just barely jogs to the player with the ball. A couple of other guys, obviously, ball kind of pinging around inside. It passes around and ultimately finds the feet of Morris. But at no point does he make an effort to get back into the play after getting beat. Danny, you hadn't played a minute of soccer competitively in 3 weeks? Don't tell me you don't have the legs at 21, 22 years old to run 10 yards back into the play. This team happens with Driussi a lot too. If something goes against the way they're playing or individually, an individual mistake happens, so quick to hang their head instead of just putting their head down and getting back into it and fighting for the ball again.
Yeah, the other big thing on this play is Beerus trying to slide across, and like not with a lot of effort. I'll give him credit, but like Gallagher essentially runs a pick on him completely on accident, and like they have two players sort of fumbling the ball, and like 5 of our guys are taken out of the game on nothing, literally nothing. It's a hip drop and like sort of a pass, and it's infuriating if you watch it back.
Yeah.
Charles or Seth, any cheery additions?
So I kind of want to bring back to a couple things in the first half that I think got missed. I think we actually nearly had a very crazy game on Saturday. I thought Cascante was really fortunate not to get called for a penalty really early in the first half when he went to ground in the box. And I thought Gaymar was fortunate not to get sent off when he got beat in the box by Biru and made contact with Biru's face, which normally is a red card. So I thought that both those incidents in the first half. And then the two incidents in the second half that really stood out to me was, one, the first yellow card on Brandon Hindsight, which is caused by trying to interplay with Owen Wolf. Owen makes a bad pass that gets picked off, and as is usual with Austin, is bad transition defense, people being out of place. Jordan Morris is the kind of striker to take advantage of that. Brandon Hindsight has to take that foul. You always have to do that foul as a yellow. And he doesn't get subbed off, even though I think everybody kind of knew that, like, Seattle's going to target him. Seattle's going to target him with Morris. And nothing happens. Wolf doesn't make any subs out, even though he had Vaisen warming up since the beginning of the second half to bring him on. Hindsight gets sent off, obviously, and then at that point, the game's effectively over. And even on the goal, if we want to go further back, that move for Seattle starts by a bad corner from Wolf, who had bad corners all night. The pass gets picked off in the box, and they just kind of move down the field and score. And as soon as Morris gets in the box with the ball, especially with how hot he's been lately, like, he's going to score that. And one of the biggest, I think one of the biggest areas that MLS teams and MLS fans discount are the ex-U.S. men's national team guys or fringe U.S. men's national team guys who we chide a lot as just being there as like MLS quota or whatever. But like those guys can still play and they can still do stuff. And there's a reason why Jordan Morris has been in this league for this long, is that he's a good striker and you have to account for him, and being able to save him for the second half is what sets teams like Seattle apart from Austin in a game that for the most part was kind of even.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't trying to skip over the first half here. You mentioned kind of the U.S. national team axis or circle or whatever you want to call it. I don't think if that foul is on Rock's box or whatever the fuck 14's name was, that's his second yellow. What was it, Seth?
Petro Rostock there, but who like barely ever plays for them. But
yeah,
he got his half there.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess let's go ahead and dig on the referee here, because you hit on a couple of the big things. Live, the foul on De La Vega, I was 100,000% convinced was a penalty. On the replay, I don't think you can give it, but it's not because I don't think it's a penalty. It's because he basically like jump stops and starts falling before Julio even hits him.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that if that had been called on the field, that would be hard to overturn.
Oh, of course.
You get to a point where it's like, we just got lucky that wasn't called immediately on the field.
Oh, yeah. Like I was totally convinced that was, even Danny, if you watch the replay, he's just waiting for the whistle when he recovers the ball. And I mean, everybody besides the ref seemed to know it.
Well, and that wasn't even the only penalty he missed on that end of the field, because later on at the very end of the game, one of Austin's players gets pulled down right in the box in a play that never gets called a penalty, but should be a penalty, in a way that like they just dare referees to call it. And he was kind of lax, but like that's a penalty.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you can't just pull somebody down who with the ball is going directly at him.
Sure, and I agree with you. It should be called a penalty, but it never is. So, like, are you going to start to help Austin out in the 90th minute of a game? No, you're not. If you're a ref, you're not going to put your neck on the line like that. I did watch back the foul on, I think it was Biru by Yamar. I don't think that's a red. His hand's up, it's a yellow, but there's very, very little evidence for intent. And if you look at it on, like, you can't give him a red on VAR or anything. He smacks him in a bad spot and Bureau makes a meal out of it. But if that was given a red against us, I'd be fucking furious.
Yeah, live and in person, I thought it was orangey. As far as
orange
the card.
would be fine.
Yeah. I could have seen it going red, and I was obviously screaming for it because I wanted the help.
Sure, and I mean, they can't complain if they give a red there either.
Sure. I mean, he got him above the shoulders, right? But I'm okay with it being yellow.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But where I'm not okay is what Charles is kind of alluding to. We have this crazy series of events where Heinzike and, like, I don't even think this is a foul. Jordan Morris isn't really ahead of him, and he sort of reaches out and, like, lightly taps him. There's no leg contact. Morris goes down. He's a good player. He's a veteran player. And he goes down and pops up and immediately starts flashing the little yellow card symbol, which is supposed to be a yellow card in Jordan Morris, by the way. And if that's not Jordan Morris, I don't think that's a second yellow in Heinz Ike. And now we don't have our most consistent defensive player for Copa Tejas. And this sort of shit is what infuriates me more than, like, okay, you missed a terrible handball, whatever, you guys are bad refs. But, like, this is very clearly, and, we can talk about the Messi effect or whatever, but, like, deferential to star players. And they're just like, oh, well, you're a good player. Clearly, you had to have the right answer here. And it's like, no, he's a fucking professional player. He's trying to con you, ref. What the fuck is going on? So went off on a little tangent there, but Seth or Brad, any way you saw that one?
Brad, all you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a foul. I don't know if it would rise to a yellow, but at the same time, I need Heinz Ike to be a little more careful already being on the game. I also think that there's an argument that Josh probably could have subbed Heinz Ike because it's not uncommon for Josh to sub out a guy without a yellow to protect us, right? And that gets back, and I know I'm kind of going on a tangent on Josh again here, but the substitution patterns in this game for us were horrible. They were slow to come in. We didn't make a change to the 72nd minute. Somebody's got a weird audio situation going on. We didn't make a change to the 72nd minute, and beyond that, it seemed like we were slow to react to everything that Seattle was doing. I probably would have taken Heinz Ike off. I know we don't like to use defensive subs too much, but we literally just did last week. Like we took off Leo at one point, I think 45 minutes in or 50 minutes in for Cascante.
Yep.
It was the 68th minute of that match.
Yeah, so it's not unprecedented for Josh to do this. And it would have taken Heinz Ike out of a situation and the team out of a bad situation where, you know what, you're playing with fire when one of your center backs is on a yellow. That just is what it is.
And it's not like we haven't seen him do that before. I mean, we've seen him take off midfielders or other players who have yellows to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And that just seems like an obvious one of, like, we need.
Especially in a one-goal game, right? Hey, it's still with a lot of time to go. Like, there was still a chance to get back into that game, and then you let one decision, which I can't argue that it was necessarily the wrong decision, but you let one decision go against you, and now your back's really against the wall. Down a goal and down a man changes the whole complexion of the game.
Well, I mean, Charles pointed it out. We were getting burned left and right on the counter right before that.
Yeah.
So a yellow card is foreseeable. I'm kind of fine, like, trusting your players, but also wouldn't have been mad if I saw him get hauled off. But, I mean, then we have this crazy thing where I think it's Albert Rusnak, like, smacks one off the bar off the free kick. Obriana's clear, free, and Yamar, who is on what we just called an orange card, hauls him down from behind, like, stopping a counterattack. Clear yellow card for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see how, like, the Heinz Ike thing, kind of like what we said, he can't really be mad about a yellow there. Fine if we're quibbling about it. He should probably know better, but it's the same thing here. Like, you literally just sent off Heinz Ike for let's call it a 50-50 yellow. This is much clearer of a yellow for me.
Well, Heinz Ike got a yellow earlier in the game against Morris, his first yellow.
Yeah.
was for a counter that he hacked him down from behind.
Yep.
So that just needs to be consistency. That's all I'm asking for there.
Yeah, exactly. Like either they're both yellows or neither is.
Yeah.
So
But you're asking pro referees, even with their relatively new collective bargaining agreement, to be consistent. I mean, come on.
Fair.
I mean, Charles, you kind of mentioned the pull down thing. Do we want to see that call more like across the league, or is this just sort of a we didn't create anything frustration thing for us?
I would like to see it called more because I think that it becomes a situation where defenders know that they can commit a foul freely in a way that is actually kind of dangerous because it's usually like two players running and somebody gets dragged down. But I also wonder if that's like a growing up around American football and pass interference thing. Like I don't know if that's just like the way that I view it. But I also think that if you did that in the middle of the field, it'd be a foul, right?
It's Brad's favorite talking point.
Everybody's coming around on my side.
Like, and so I think that's kind of like I think it's always like an interesting thought experiment of like of the idea of just kind of like, okay, well, is that a foul if it's in the field? And I think that if somebody did that, I think it'd be a foul.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some weird like refereeing development in some leagues where they're saying like, oh, it's only a foul if it's two arms. And it's like, well, if you say that, then people are just going to like foul the shit out of somebody with one arm. Like, these guys aren't stupid.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that like the players are going to adapt to however the game is called, and especially if it's like consistently over like a season or seasons. But I mean, even in the game, the players are good enough and controlled enough to be able to do that. So that's why the biggest complaint, like you said, is the lack of consistency because the players just need to know what is and isn't about.
Yeah, and especially like yellow cards, is it or isn't it? You know, we got two guys on yellows, like one maybe, one definitely, and the one that's a maybe gets called. So what are we doing?
But I haven't yet seen we still have never done a refereeing episode, but like I've never seen a league that has been consistent on this. So as much as we like to shit on pro and MLS refs, and there's a fair bit of material to work with, I don't see any league that gets this done consistently right.
No, I totally agree. And I was going to mention that, Charles, I mean, you watch the Premier League, this gets called and not called, and maybe it only happens for Man City against certain teams that you might root for and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, Seth. This is a worldwide needs some answer or like some consistency somewhere or something.
Yeah.
Because it's a mess right now.
Well, then we're just going to get the handball rule that's coming worldwide. Nobody knows what handball is.
No, I feel like I know what a handball is less every day, which is actually comforting at this point.
I was going to say, like, I know what a catch is in the NFL more than I know what a handball is in soccer.
Yeah, Riley always likes to say when they talk about a football move that everything is by definition a football move, so it's a meaningless statement.
That's the same as great golf shot when you're watching a tournament. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, didn't realize he had a tennis racket in his bag, but sure. Awesome job. There's one high note I want to mention, but I think we're going to get to it in format, and we're pushing up on time. So I know we want to bitch about other things after that. So let's go ahead and hit it. Seth, stock rising. Let's go.
Stock rising is Brian Schmetzer. We've talked enough about coaching here, but there have only been 3 coaches that have been hired and are still coaching longer than Josh Wolf has been coaching in MLS. You have Peter Vermees, who Sporting KC is starting to look a little better. Obviously, they beat us. They did beat San Jose over the weekend. You get to Jim Curtin, who is Philly's in last place in the East. They are in last place in the East. It's pretty remarkable, and it's not like they have matches in hand or anything. Like, they're in last place in the East. But Brian Schmetzer, after a poor start to the season with the Seattle Sounders, has gotten them back rocking and rolling. But, like, that's what you have to do if you're 9 years into this. Yes, you can slump for a little bit, but you get your team ready to go when it matters. And that should be the standard that we should be setting for our coach in Austin. So I'm choosing Brian Schmetzer. And it's kind of cool they sing Jingle Bells whenever they win away. And they do that a lot in Austin. And I'm sick of that. So he gets my begrudging stock rise.
Okay, yeah, I think I saw somewhere that Peter Vermees is like the 4th longest tenured coach in the world or something like that.
I mean, I'm not. It's crazy. There is no coach in the top 5 leagues in the world that is longer tenured than Peter Vermees.
Yeah.
Because right now, with Christian Streich leaving Freiburg at the end of the season, Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid is the only one who is 12 years plus in any of the top 5 leagues in Europe.
Yowza.
That's crazy.
Charles, how about you, Stock Rising?
My stock rising is proofreading. I was gonna go. I think it's really important that everybody just, before you like send a text or write a tweet or print a plain banner, just really take a second and think about what you're writing and make sure that like you're not fat fingering it before you hit send or hit print or whatever it is. I think we all learned that lesson on Saturday, just like a good reminder.
So
are you impugning the WolfDut movement?
Yes, but it's not even. Here's the thing: it's not even a good like audio joke because like they also misspelled wolf.
Yeah, but everybody listening to this knows.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I will say this: it is funny that the plane messed that up. Like the plane company is the one that messed that up. The receipts are floating around Twitter.
All right, but it's still not a great look.
No,
it's still
it's
really
not.
funny.
It's funny.
I don't know. You guys know our guiding light here is the funniest answer is always the best, and misspelling it is the funniest answer. So, yeah, Brad, how about you, Stock Rising?
I'm gonna go on the field and go with CJ Foger.
Yep. Okay, that's where I was hoping.
I thought he was very, very good in his limited minutes. I thought he was the one sub that we made that came on and really showed some passion to play. Trying to fire up the north end on corners. The corner that they actually let him send in was beautiful and right into the middle of the box in a dangerous area. He probably had a play or two where he got a little overzealous and maybe should have passed off the ball a little, but I'd rather see him try to take some guys on and make something happen when we're down in goal than to just play boring soccer. So good job, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, he's a late game winger sub that we're chasing a goal. So I would rather him be over ambitious than go ahead and pass it back. And yeah, I know I saw a lot of chatter about people saying, oh, well, CJ should play more. And if CJ plays like this, I totally agree. He should play more. His previous appearances weren't as good, but like if we get this CJ, fuck yes, like start him.
Yes.
Or bring him in earlier. I was very, very impressed, and I've kind of dogged on him because he's one of my FC toe boys a little bit the past few weeks. But, I've been saying he doesn't look confident or, things like that. And he absolutely proved me wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and eat that one. He was great. And, the chances we got after he came on and after the Wolf out chant in, I want to say it was the 83rd minute, he was the entire energy of the team.
I would rather see somebody come on and make mistakes playing at 100 miles an hour than somebody playing overly cautious.
Yeah, especially down a goal at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give mine to Austin Rise. Won their conference for the first time this year. Had a playoff win in extra time on Saturday. Gutted it out. Had to play again on Sunday. Didn't have quite the result they wanted, but it was a fun season for those of you who've gone to games. I know I saw Brad at one, but they look like they've really improved this year, and I hope they keep it up next year. So stocks falling. Let's start with Charles.
I'm gonna go with Owen Wolf. Not that I thought he played like a terrible game, but like I kind of mentioned, like he had 2 turnovers that led to really impactful moments against Austin. And at some point, like being able to maintain possession and especially when your team's so bad in transition defense of just like giving the ball away in bad areas is always going to put you behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I feel like he's either up or down for us every week at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of just like his age and like inexperience, but like he is also like in year 2 at this point.
Yeah.
The question is Owen still our corner kick taker post league?
Oh, God,
I hope not.
Oh,
I mean, there are bad days, but
I don't understand why it's not Biru.
Because he can shoot a ball that comes off of a deflection off a corner.
He's also got some height.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope we would have more people that could take corners, but some point it just turns into it. Seth, you want to go next?
Yeah, I gotta say, Danny here. Like we were talking pre-Copa America about, well, Danny's gonna get some minutes at Copa America. If he has a great tournament, we're selling him for 7 figures to somewhere in Europe. Danny doesn't get a minute of the tournament. You would think coming back off of that, and especially coming back off of suspension, like, yeah, that was a tough PK loss there, but like his head maybe was in a terrible space at Copa America. Maybe that's why he didn't make it into the roster. Like, obviously, I don't know everything else that's going on in his life. We'll let other people speculate and go through all of that stuff. That's not our shop here. But like, his headspace just seemed, he looked like the game was running by him. Like, I mean, he honestly looked better in his limited minutes in 2021 than he did in that game on Saturday. Like, I hope it was an aberration and that he looks fine on Wednesday and he can make me eat my words like some other stock falling people have done. But that was not good.
No, and I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit, but there was nothing to lose for the Venezuela coach to toss him on with a 2-0 lead, and all you needed was a draw, and he gets a couple minutes in his home stadium. But he did not have a good day. Brad?
Yeah, Danny was my number one. So I'm going to go hit a point I hit earlier, which is the substitution pattern from Josh this week.
Yep.
I thought he got the subs right last week, especially with guys going down, and he had to mix and match the lineup, and it's closed the game out against New York. He made subs early and aggressively when we had to, protected against a yellow. Like, he did a lot of things last week against New York that he did not do this past Saturday night against Seattle. And I don't understand the philosophy of why you would change that idea in a similar situation week to week. It's kind of wild to me that we didn't make any moves till the 72nd minute, which is unfortunately something that Josh has done a lot of in his tenure here.
Well, it's a 3-game week too.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest part.
The other coach made 2 moves at halftime that arguably changed the game.
Yeah.
And,
not arguably.
Yeah, there's no arguing. They did change the game. It's things sometimes besides goals change games.
Yes. That's lesson 2. We haven't got there yet, Seth. I don't know. There's a lot of choices. I'm going to generally go for CONMEBOL organizing tournaments in the U.S. 2 games in a row where there were major security issues, and they're an experienced federation. They know how to do this stuff, and it just sort of seems like they went, hey, we're going to cash our checks and not bother. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on the whole situation.
I will say that having gone to one match that was incredibly poorly organized, and it was just a pure cash grab. You get to the point, the USA Uruguay match I went to had 20,000 unsold seats. I tried to resell my ticket for less than the $109 I paid, and Ticketmaster would not let me sell them for $1 over or $1 under.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like, it is your goal at a certain point. We saw this. We talked about this with the Paraguay-Costa Rica match at Q2. They could have gotten thousands of more people in there for $30, $40. They'd still be buying beers. They'd still be buying other things. CONMEBOL would still be making money. This is just at a point you have the technology for dynamic pricing. Use dynamic pricing. And then on security, I didn't go to any of the matches in Austin, so I don't know I assume the normal Q2 security crews, but we've already spent 10 minutes talking about how Q2 security can be variable match to match here. I just think that they did, like, that venue has hosted the Super Bowl multiple times, hosted F1 race, host a world-class tennis tournament out there. They host the Miami Dolphins. There was a guy who was tweeting saying that there was less security there than for a Miami Florida State game. And yeah, people tell the Miami Florida State game, but like, come on, these are 2 countries. There are 700,000 combined Argentine and Colombian expats that live in the 3 counties in South Florida alone, much less people who come in there. Tickets were going for, I looked on SeatGeek that on match day, I think the cheapest way to get in with fees was around $1,600. Of course, people are going to try to sneak into this. You have, like, there's nothing near that stadium. There is just a mile of parking lots. Like, you should have had to scan your tickets to get off the highway exit there. That's what they do at a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I Seth and I have both been to one. I mean, the perimeter to get into the stadium starts a long way away from the stadium at a Super Bowl. You can't just walk right up to the gates, and that's exactly what they should have done in Miami. Seth, you said you didn't come to the game here. I didn't either, but there's video of fans rushing the gates here and actually running their way in for the Venezuela game. Yeah, that happened here at Q2.
I'm not. Well, there's again. It's a simple issue of supply and demand. You have a Venezuelan population that's very passionate, but a lot of them are not necessarily. I mean, those tickets were expensive. I mean, cheapest ticket was like $200 to get in that day. Like, I get it.
Yeah. It was a failure last night. And there's really no other way to say it. I'm surprised that you said you couldn't sell tickets for under face where you were, because the match that we went to,
literally, like, the app didn't let me.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting to. The app let us when we went for the Bolivia game. So because I told y'all this, but I don't think
but that's different because AT&T is a SeatGeek stadium and Arrowhead is a Ticketmaster stadium.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that might be a Ticketmaster thing. And guess who won the exclusive ticketing rights to the 2026 World Cup?
Yeah,
Fanatics. I know you think I'm wrong, but I'm right.
Hey, I mean, everyone was at their white party on July 4th. I mean, I was looking around at that thing and I'm like, oh God. I mean, they own everything now.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should just extend this to tournament security in general. So you guys had we had the issues here at Q2. There was the whole Darwin Nunez fighting people, whatever the fuck happened there. I'm not going to pretend I know. There was a bunch of shit in Germany where fans were throwing shit at players. That was completely insane. I think they sorted it out for the knockouts, but during the group stage, it was like, fuck, I'm worried about some of these guys. Like, it's not just, empty beer cans or anything, or like they get hit with a little beer or something. It was like heavy looking shit that people were throwing. And you can seriously hurt someone like that. So we'll just call it general summer tournament security, I guess. Brad, you want to do moment of suffering?
So it's the one I talked about earlier. It was when Danny just decided to jog while the only goal of the game was happening after he got beat. Watching it in real time, it felt like slow motion to me. Not just his play, but the whole play developing. But I was specifically watching him, and I could feel myself screaming like, "Danny, go get in the play," and just the no effort, the zero desire to make something happen. That was mine because it truly for me, like it was happening in slow motion. I was about to explode.
Yep. Charles?
My moment of suffering was the second half when I realized that Brian Schmetzer's plan for the match worked perfectly, and he brought on Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak. Morris has scored. This was the fifth goal he scored in 5 games, and on a bigger picture level, in a match that I thought that was fairly even. I think Austin's had a few of these. The biggest difference is just that Austin doesn't convert chances and they don't score, and the other team's players do. And it's sad to know that Austin doesn't have anybody who's as good of a striker as Jordan Morris.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like this is the first time Seattle has come to Q2, played a bunch of backups, held on, subbed on the starters, and then won.
I mean, at least this time it wasn't a bunch of teenagers, so it makes me feel better. But at the same time,
it was some of the same players, but
it was.
But hey, you know what? At least the goal came from inside the box.
It's true.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, like it's just a reminder that, like, as much as we talk about like goals changing games, like the bigger thing is that like you have to have match winners who can score goals, and Austin doesn't have those guys.
No. And I mean, we didn't get a whole lot into tactics, but if you want to watch the second half, this is exactly an example of Austin basically trying to play the counters like, okay, I'm going to get to my spot, and then we're going to set up, and then everybody's going to do their job, and it's going to work great, right? And Seattle's just like, fuck it, we'll take the space you give us. Let's go. So it's exactly how to not play on the counter versus how to play on the counter, at least for me.
But we've also, I just have to note, we all went through stock downs already, and we were in moments of suffering. And we get to a point where it is 84 minutes into this podcast, and we've barely mentioned the name Sebastian Driussi.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is going to be my moment of suffering, because it wasn't actually a moment. But, like, you have a player on this team that should be a guy like a Rui Diaz, a Jordan Morris, someone who you can count on to score. Admittedly, he has scored in key moments, even this season. but like I don't know if it's his buddy Rigoni going away or him posting song quotes or whatever else. But like whatever headspace is, that is my moments and multiple moments of suffering, and I hope he can get over that with Bukhari, Dessler, and Svata coming in, because otherwise, I want to see him shipped out at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think this is a one thing problem. We don't really know. It seems like he's a vibes player, and I mean to some extent all players are, but I don't think it's just the Rigoni thing, and everybody likes to blame that, but like he's been on the downslope. We're not really using him in a very fun way for him. And obviously, you know, when players are having fun, they're going to play better. But like, it just seems like the everything. And I guess let's go ahead and open this up. Do we think him being captain matters?
No,
Yes.
I think that's it over. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely matters.
To him or for the team?
Both.
Yes.
Okay. Talk me through this.
I think he wants to. I think the idea of being the captain is something he likes. I don't know that the responsibility of being the captain is something that he's shown that he can handle.
Okay, I agree with that, Charles.
Same, and I think some of it is also just like the way that the rest of the league sees him. Like, there's a weird moment like 2 or 3 matches ago where the other team's captain like yelled at or against LAFC. When Ilya Sanchez like yelled at the referee for like 30 seconds, and the referee just kind of took it, but Driussi like says one thing to the ref and gets yellow carded for dissent, and it's just kind of like a thing of like those little things do matter. I mean, we're talking about a match where Austin had one of their players sent off for 2 yellow cards, and I also just from a team structure standpoint don't think that the like best attacking player should also be your captain unless it's a like Wayne Rooney type. Like that level of player and in person on the field, and I just don't think that like Driussi has handled like that extra pressure, and you can see that in the stats. Like it's very clear and obvious, and as much as he wants to be the guy, he is also not a shot creator. He is not somebody who can break down a defense by himself, and he needs help.
Yeah, and I mean we're not creating anything, let alone things for him. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on this. It was the, I don't even remember which half this was in, but we worked the ball really well down the side, and somebody tried to cross it into Driussi, and it was like 10 feet behind him. And you could just see everybody on the team's shoulders slump, and the rest of the game was just absolutely terrible.
It's why I don't think he needs to be a captain, because his body language is often very negative. Just that speaks volumes. I mean, go back to that Kansas City game a couple of weeks ago. And Johnny Russell for KC was very vocal. He was in players' ears. He was in the refs' ears. And they played hard that night. When have you ever seen that out of Driussi since he's had the armband? Like, when things are going well, you know, the vibes are great, but I need somebody to get in there and have that little bit of combativeness to them with an armband. I need somebody who's not afraid to get in folks' faces and speak to your own team. And to me, it speaks volumes that, and I know my understanding is he speaks English, but he may not be as comfortable with it as some of the other guys on the team. But every time you see the team huddle, when they're huddle around before a half to go back on the field, it's never Driussi talking to the team. It's never the captain. It's always, usually it's Stuber, but it's always somebody else, or sometimes it's Ring delivering the message. I want my captain delivering that message. I need you to be a leader vocally as much as you are with your play. And when your play is, okay, you're not playing great, that's fine. Slumps happen. Okay, you got in and out of form. I can get that. But effort is a whole nother animal, and body language is a whole nother animal. And I think it's rubbing off, man. And I don't think he's suited for this role.
Yeah.
So, like, my point, like, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said, but, like, does it matter that he is the actual captain of the team, or is it just that he's dragging down the team just because he's your most prominent attacking player?
I think it matters. I mean, guys still need leadership. every team has to have accountability and leadership, right? And sometimes there is the unquestioned person that is going to be that leader and that captain. And that armband, I like to think it means something in this sport. So yes, he needs to be the leader of this team, and he's not doing it, at least from what I can see. From what we can see. Now, granted, we only see what's on the field. We don't see training facility. We don't see practice. But from the videos that we get and from what we see on the field, it's not what you would expect out of the guy wearing the armband.
Yeah, and my kind of side point here is that if you're worrying about the captain, you already have a problem.
Yeah.
So we should have 3, 4, 5 guys that you would be like, oh, I already thought he was the captain or something like that. Like you look at Spain, who just won the Euros, like who's their captain? I know. Do you guys? Alvaro Morata. But if I told you it was Rodri or Danny Carvajal, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I thought so.
Sure,
So,
yeah. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, Morata's
you
one of the
want,
older on the team, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you want, at least a few guys that you would be like, okay, well, yeah, I could see him being a captain. And here it's like, okay, we have Driussi, who's the best player, and I understand why he's the captain, but, we have Ring as the leader, but also Stuver. And, I mean, I don't think we need to deep dive the whole goalkeepers as captains thing, but...
No. But the team rallies around Cascante, too. Like, they really do.
Yeah.
This team responds to Julio.
How much do we think the, English thing matters? Like, maybe in some games, but I would think a fair amount of refs speak Spanish, too.
Yeah, a fair number of refs speak Spanish. But you also have 3 new guys coming into this team who I don't think any of them speak a lick of Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because we are moving from a more Latin American based team to a more European and African based the 3 guys coming in. But we'll be curious to see as future signings come in. Are we going to have fewer native Spanish speaking players on the team? And that maybe matters in terms of a captain and leadership in general.
Yeah, maybe it does. I was thinking just referees, but that's a good point. So, I mean, I'm going to stick with my original thing. If you're worried about the captain, you have bigger problems, but.
Yeah, but I also think this comes to not just leadership on the field and within the locker room, right? But also how it's presented to your fan base and your community. When was the last time we heard from Driussi?
No idea.
Yeah, the fact that the 4 of us can't have no clue on that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from my captain what he thinks right now. And the narrative that we often hear is that he's one of the first ones to leave the locker room after a game. That's go back to when Ruben was here. That's not, you never said that about Ruben.
Nope.
The guy was he wore the armband whenever Ring wasn't on the field. Actually, towards the end of the season, he was the de facto co-captain of the team. But Ruben would stay and answer questions and tell you what he was thinking. And I think even something like that would just go a long way with the fan base from a captain perspective. I know, Seth, you said earlier, maybe some folks overblew what the quote was from Ring that came out today about, well, you have to ask Josh. He's got the plan, but that's more than we've gotten out of Driussi in a year and a half.
Do we have any idea if the front office won't let him give press conferences in Spanish, or is that a him decision?
I think he's a guy that doesn't want to answer the hard questions. He strikes me as someone who likes adulation, who likes it when things are good, but when things get tough, doesn't really want the hard question.
Yeah.
Somebody's doing all kinds of work on the computer. Sorry, this new thing is all set up here.
All good.
My new setup is not working perfectly here.
No, I mean, we did all the fun stuff at the front, so people didn't have to listen this far anyway. So we are well past time, but anything else anybody wants to get off their chest while we're here? No?
We actually didn't talk about Copa Tejas scenarios.
Okay, go ahead.
So, and Seth, please correct me if I'm wrong, as you always do. So I'm fairly sure that if Austin wins or ties on Wednesday, they clinch Copa Tejas.
That is correct.
Okay, good. I like being correct.
That was the best
Well done, Seth.
intentional mistake.
No, that had to be intentional. I completely missed that.
Leave that in. Please leave
Yep.
that in.
You guys know I don't actually edit this, right?
Yes. Yes.
What?
This is the quality that you're listening to in the stoppage time of this podcast.
Yes.
Oh, we've gone commie ball stoppage time.
Yeah.
Oh no, we've definitely gotten to like the weird last sketch at SNL time. But I just want to mention that because like it is something that like a lot of fans care about, and I also kind of want to shit talk that like I'm tired of it always being down to a game played in Frisco.
Yeah, why is that?
Blame MLS schedule making.
Okay, that's a good.
Well, like also
I was
like
blaming
when
them
you,
for
when
stuff
you
anyway,
get it, like
so
this is
let's
the
do it.
second to last match of the season for Copa Tejas, but it's kind of crazy that in a 3-team tournament based on total points that the matches involving the two highest teams in the standings will have no implications on the final.
Yeah, and also this whole like imbalanced. We play 3 against one team, but 2
It will
against
be
another.
normal
and they
next
play...
year. It will be normal next year. Thank you, San Diego FC.
Yeah, but like they didn't have to do it 2 years in a row.
They sort of did because of the 3-team. It's whatever. We're not going to go into that. No.
They did the same thing with Cascadia too. Like it's and the California teams, they're doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So let's do quick predictions on Copa Tejas final. Seth, you want to go first?
I'm going to say heartbreaking 2-1 loss with a Frisco winner in the 89th minute.
Oh, okay. That's pretty close to mine, so I'm going to piggyback off on it. I think we know we need a draw to take home the title. We're going to get super conservative, and we're going to pay for it late. Maybe not 89th. I'm going to say like 78th, but I'm going to go 1-0 Frisco. Brad?
I have it 2-0 Frisco on Wednesday night.
Okay. Charles?
1-0 Frisco with something fairly late, like 70th minute on.
Okay. So we're all sort of in the same boat that there is no hope in. We should all just fuck off during it.
Well, I
have
mean,
no
we also have,
expectations at all.
I mean, we've watched enough Austin FC home away matches this season to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the one away match where we actually like showed some fire and played offense was in Frisco.
True.
I mean that's because we were down 5 minutes in it, and Frisco led us. But yes.
Well, also they've recently fired their Berhalter acolyte, so.
Yeah, I didn't mean to mention this. 4 of their 7 wins have happened in their last 7 MLS matches because they have got a new manager bounce.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
maybe that's Austin's way of getting into the playoffs and getting more points after Leagues Cup.
I mean, they kicked around Galaxy the other night. Like, we did the same thing like earlier in the year, but don't discount the fact that they're playing solid soccer. I mean, you know, of their losses even recently, it was a tight loss to Cincinnati, a tight loss on the road to Seattle. It was a game that I think they blew a 2-0 lead that night, if I'm not mistaken, in the second half.
They did. They blew a 2-0 lead at 75 minutes. Ouch.
Yeah. So they're not playing terrible soccer. They lost back-to-back games quickly to KC like twice in the span of 4 days because of Open Cup, but they're playing better, especially at home. I just don't see how we go in there and produce.
Yeah, they have won 4 of their last 5 at home.
Yeah. With the loss being the Cincinnati.
You know what? I don't even know if I believe the new manager bounce, because the funniest thing that happened in MLS last weekend was St. Louis City losing 4-1 at home to Vancouver after they fired Bradley Cardell for blowing a multi-goal lead in Vancouver, and then they lose by even more at home with an injury. So the new manager bounce doesn't always work. St. Louis City has now lost their 2 matches that were not against San Jose by a cumulative 8-2 since firing Carnell.
Yeah, and their interim coach still has a better career win percentage than Josh Wolf.
That is correct.
So that seems like a good note to end this.
Oh yeah, and then
Are you going to preview what we're doing on Wednesday?
Sure. Go ahead and tell us, Seth.
Oh, forgot about this.
Yeah, so what we're going to do on Wednesday, we're going to do something for the first time ever. Instead of recording a podcast after the match, we are going to do a live Twitter Spaces with the four of us that we're going to go do it and go live during the match. So we'll see if this actually works or not. We figured that none of us were taking the trip up or down to North Texas. And let's hope that we have no thunderstorm delays and we just have a normal time match. And maybe it will be better than the predictions that all four of us just gave.
Yeah, I just remembered you should follow us at SufferingPod on Twitter. So on that note, on behalf of Seth, Brad, Charles, and hopefully the three of us live next time, thank you for suffering with us. Bye.
Promise here for Austin Jarrett Stroud. It's Diego, for goodness! He has written his name into Austin folklore.
They just won't go away.
Oh, he hits the upright again! That's impossible!
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
Altidore squares it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory.